Hello there, and welcome back to the channel. So, I know I'm pretty late to the party on all this. Look, as of recording this, I watched the movie 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I've been incredibly busy. And yeah, the movie's good, really good. While I think K-pop Demon Hunters might be, slightly overglazed, there's no doubt the film has become a worldwide hit and a gold mine for Netflix. I mean, I've been hearing Golden everywhere. I heard it play on my local radio station and at restaurants. I mean, not to mention its songs are still top 10 globally on Netflix. And the movie came out almost 3 months ago. Meanwhile, Fantastic Four kind of just came and went. I've seen almost no one talk about this film outside of the fandom space, and even then, reactions were pretty mixed. Now, you may be asking, well, what in the world do these two films have to do with each other? Well, both films are extremely formulaic, which I don't think that's a hot take, but the more I've thought about K-pop Demon Hunters, the more I've praised it for how it uses old tropes and formulas to tell the story it wants to tell. Whereas the more I've thought about Fantastic Four, the harsher my feelings on it have gone for being predictable. In today's episode, I'm going to go over the 3 main reasons Team Huntr took the world by storm, while Marvel's First Family sort of fell flat. Those reasons are themes, world building, and music. Oh, and obviously there will be spoilers for both films, so if you have not watched them, I highly recommend you come back once you have. With that, let's go into the first reason Team Huntr dominated the world.
Why couldn't you love me? I do! All of me!
Look, let's keep it $1.50. K-pop Demon Hunters is an extremely formulaic film. There's a bad guy trying to take over the world, and our heroes have to stop him. Rumi's hiding a big secret from her friends, which inevitably gets revealed to them. Rumi falls for the bad boy and tries to fix him. Jinu says he'll help Huntr stop Guima, only to betray them. Then he redeems himself and sacrifices his life for the greater good. The heroes save the day, forgive each other, and live happily ever after. Oh, and obviously it's a musical, so you gotta have the I Want song, the love song, the villain song, and the heroes literally defeat the villains through song.
Come on, man! That's too easy!
But here's the thing. Well, the film might be formulaic. It uses these tropes to expertly explore its themes and messages. This is exactly what Star Wars did in 1977. George Lucas studied the hero's journey so much, he translated that directly into Luke's story. But he used it as a method to craft a deeply imaginative world that helps display his thoughts on human desire, spirituality, and imperialism. With K-pop Demon Hunters, it uses formula to explore themes of shame, acceptance, and the power of music. The first part of this I wanted to talk about was the main villain, Guima. Generally, these types of stories make the villain start off with the advantage, or they might start on even footing with the protagonist and our hero needs to figure out how to gain the upper hand. Not to mention, Guima is even flatter and somehow more evil than Palpatine. But there's a few reasons Guima works in this film. Here, the villain is at a steep disadvantage. I mean, Guima is literally about to lose as the film opens. However, he uses clever tactics to take back control of the Hanmoon. This comes in the form of the Saja Boys, who manipulate both the fans and Team Huntr that his path is the only way. Much like the devil, he uses hatred and deception to play into the insecurities of our heroes, which almost makes him take over the world. While it was obvious Huntr would defeat Guima at the end, this isn't the main focus of the final battle. The reason it works is because it represents Rumi accepting herself and destroying all the self-hatred that consumed her life. This could have felt really boring and predictable, and to be honest, I do think the final battle was a bit underwhelming, but the boss battle generally works because it's the culmination of all the themes the film has built up. The villain represents our own shame and insecurities, and the more we feed into that, the further down the dark side we go down. When we finally accept ourselves with all our flaws and failings, we can finally learn to love others and make a better tomorrow. This is why the boss fight works. It's not because we have to resolve a plot point of killing the bad guy. Don't worry, I'll get back to that in a moment. But this goes to another part of the film, the conflict between Rumi and her friends.
Y'all are my best friends! What are you saying?
I don't know, bro, but it'll be alright, bro. It's all good.
What's up? Hell no, what's up?
What?
What's up?
So it was pretty obvious Ruby's secret was going to be revealed. I mean, only for her friends to leave for a bit, then everyone forgives each other. But just like how they handled the villain, the formula was used to deepen Rumi's character arc. The conflict between the trio shows how destructive self-hatred can be to those around you.
What are you hiding from us?
Not everything is about your insecurities, Mira.
That's low, even for me.
Rumi was led to believe her friends wouldn't accept her, that she'd be feared for her faults, and her worst fear came to life. But Mira and Zoe weren't scared because she was a demon, no. They were scared because Rumi lied. For Mira and Zoe, it's completely understandable they'd be worried about Rumi. Their entire relationship was essentially built on a lie. What else could Rumi have lied about? How could she be trusted when her entire being was a mirage? The amount of distrust fractured the group so much, it nearly destroyed the world. The entire conflict could have been avoided if the three were just honest with each other at the start. If they left their biases and judgments at the door, then perhaps the Hanmoon would have been safe the entire time. It's only when Rumi fully opens herself to Mira and Zoe that true healing can happen. When we let others in, when we put down our walls, open up our shame and sin, that's when we begin getting better. It's as what it sounds like says. We listen to the demons, we let them get between us, but none of us are out here on our own. The last trope I wanted to bring up is Genu. We've seen the bad boy trope so many times it's kinda ridiculous. The good girl wants to fix the guy while simultaneously wanting a taste for adventure. Meanwhile, the guy sees the girl as pure and wants to become better for her. Now, most stories do this just to make things spicy, and any character development is generally very surface level. However, what makes this story different is that it uses this romance trope to elevate the overall themes of shame and acceptance. Both Rumi and Genu have parts of themselves that they hate and want to throw away. Because of this shared experience, Rumi is finally seen by someone who sees her for who she truly is. She doesn't have to pretend around Genu, and it's this acceptance that makes Rumi start to love herself again. And the same thing is true of Genu. The film doesn't claim their darkness is good, but it does say we need to love ourselves if we want to be better and to feel fulfilled. It's as the lyrics of Free say, what if we both tried fighting what we're running from? We can't fix it if we never face it. It's their romance that turns the Hanmoon, one of hiding shame, to that of true love. I'm honestly surprised how well they handled this romance. Rumi and Genu never even kissed, and yet their love feels more authentic than the 90% of the slop Hollywood gives us. And that's because their romance actually feels important to the story, not just an excuse for the writers to get turned on. I was also surprised they actually killed off Genu. A lot of movies would opt to keep him alive to make the audience happy, but I was pleasantly surprised they committed to keeping him dead because it shows not every redemption ends in a happily ever after, and that your actions ultimately do have consequences. If they bring him back to life, I'll be really pissed. Speaking of...
Your brother never told you never threaten a man's family?
To be frank, it's unfair for me to say First Steps is mid. You can tell they put a lot of work into the visuals and aesthetics of the film. The characters actually feel like they're a family. And the entire second act is awesome. I mean, that interstellar type sequence evading Galactus was so cool. However, the problem is the film never does anything to feel particularly memorable. Now, look, not every film has to have these deep messages or themes. Comedies like Deadpool are solely made for laughs, yet they're memorable because of the insanely irreverent humor he has. The story of the first John Wick isn't anything crazy, yet the style of the action and revenge story completely changed how action films are made. However, if you're not going to have any distinct features, a good cohesive theme generally uplifts a film. What's the theme for the new Fantastic Four?
It's all about
Family!
That's it?
Yeah, that might be one of the blandest themes of all time. I think it's obvious that family is a good thing, but just saying that doesn't make your film good. We've seen this played out in so many stories before. It's hardly original and it barely delves into the human condition. Why is family a good thing? Is it always a good thing? Is it okay to sacrifice others to protect your family? Is keeping the family together worth it or misguided? These are all potential questions the film could have explored, but the film decided to go for an extremely surface level explanation on this. How? The first family never faced any emotional conflict. I mean, not really. Reed gives a throwaway line about how hard it is to be the smartest man alive, but nothing ever happens with that. Sue is mad at Reed for thinking of tossing their baby, but that's practically resolved in the next scene. Johnny goes through all this effort trying to save Silver Surfer. Why? Because he has a crush on her? Why does he have a particular interest in her? Enough to free her from Galactus. And Ben Grimm was done especially dirty in this movie. I mean, brother, we barely get any development from him or the girl he was interested in. Really, the closest we get to any interesting conflict is when the four are given the choice to give up their baby or let the world be eaten. Of course, they aren't gonna give up their baby, so the people of the planet understandably get mad and say the Fantastic Four chose being selfish over the safety of Earth. That could have been a really interesting debate the film explored, diving into the complexities of choosing family first and how these decisions affect us. But nope, the people get mad for about 2 seconds, then Sue gives a Dominic Toretto speech that immediately makes everyone happy.
This is a load of barnacles.
Galactus could have been a great symbol for problems entering a family's life and the seemingly impossible task of overcoming it. The final act could have been a great way to showcase the power of love and family, that it can defeat evil and that it can overcome strife. But rather than a fight symbolizing a family coming together, we instead get a bland final boss sequence because we have to wrap up the movie. Rather than a powerful moment where we see a mother sacrifice herself for the future of her child, we instead get a lame Deus Ex Machina moment meant to set up for Doomsday. I guess I gotta address this, don't I? Well, I've never been particularly excited for Doomsday. I was really hoping this Fantastic Four would change my mind. But unfortunately, it seems like the film made a lot of decisions just to prepare for Doomsday. Like I alluded to earlier, all of the character development was sped run so we could know the basic attributes about each character. There couldn't be any meaningful stakes because all the characters have to be around for Doomsday. For example, Johnny Storm almost sacrificed himself so that Galactus wouldn't get Franklin. But predictably, Silver Surfer redeems herself and makes a sacrifice for the team. Who could have seen that coming? This just felt like the executives coming in to make sure Johnny was around for Doomsday. It would have been so much cooler if Johnny did make that sacrifice, only for us to wonder where he went or how he would return, if he even could. But the more egregious example is Franklin reviving Sue Storm. Jeez, that might have been one of the most predictable scenes I've seen in a while. As soon as I saw Sue lying on the floor, I immediately called the baby reviving her. Unbelievable. What was the point of killing her off and having this emotional scene if not 3 seconds later Franklin gives her a 1-up? Sure, it could have been the culmination of a character arc, but what journey did Sue go on in the film? She's the perfect woman at the beginning of the story, the perfect woman at the end, and there's zero serious conflict she had to deal with. And Franklin's entire character is literally just a plot device to set up for Doomsday. Like, the kid is unexplainably OP, which is obviously something Dr. Doom is going to use to take over the multiverse. I mean, that's the only reason Sue died, just to showcase the baby's powers. What does Franklin's relationship with his parents say about Sue and Reed? That they love him? Brother, that's the most basic parent attribute. Can we get something about how Reed and Sue were raised? Can we see Ben struggle with romance because of his new body? Can we see Johnny develop true feelings for a woman after being sexist for so long? But no, the film doesn't do anything outside of basic setup for Doomsday. Again, I didn't need this film to have this profound message or subvert all these expectations. But if you can see the ending from a mile away, you need to do something else to elevate your film. If you're not going to have memorable action, distinct personalities, or amazing dialogue, then your story should have something to say. Otherwise, I'm going to feel like I wasted my time. And that's probably why my view of First Steps continues to decline. Its ending sucks so badly, it ruined the entirety of the film for me. Which really sucks because, like I said, there's a lot to appreciate about the first 2 acts. But let's go on to the next section, which is... Now, Fantagonistic made a great video comparing the world building in Fantastic Four to Superman. In it, he argues that while the aesthetics of First Steps may be fantastic,
Say that again?
they ultimately don't matter because the film doesn't do enough to explore the world. It ends up being background noise that might as well be any other setting. One thing he mentions in particular are how all the side characters in Fantastic Four feel more like NPCs rather than characters that live in a world. K-pop Demon Hunters avoids this by giving us memorable side characters such as Bobby, Celine, Healer Han, even that random old guy from the spa. I highly recommend you check out Fantagonistic's video because he does a much better job than I could explain it. What I'm going to do here though is go over a lot of similar scenes or sequences between Fantastic Four and K-pop Demon Hunters and why the latter works so much better for the story. So the beginnings of each film give us a recap of both teams, their origin, their personalities, their powers, and the significance they have to their respective universes. However, the reason the intro for K-pop Demon Hunters works is because its job is to give us all the important details of the world so that it can focus on the themes and the characters. Within the first 3 minutes, we know the main conflict, the rules of the world, how the regular person acts, and the backstories for each member of the trio. Showcasing these vital details allows the film to explore the playground it set up because it already did the legwork to show us why we should care about this universe. So by the time Rumi's revealed to be part demon, I was like,
Hey yo, what the
Again, her position on Huntrix and her friendship with Mira and Zoe were already established pretty well, especially with the interactions they have with each other. This allows the film time to explore Rumi's journey and how that will impact her friendships. Oh, and just like Avatar: The Last Airbender, we have at least a few generations of hunters who have their own stories. I mean, what conflicts did they face? What were their weapons, and how did they progress the hunter's mission? How did the first hunters discover the power of song? These are all interesting avenues our minds and future projects can explore. That's a sign you have great world building, and that's only from the first 3 minutes. Meanwhile, Fantastic Four intro doesn't really do that much. I mean, yes, we see the origin of the Four's powers and the type of world they live in, but what does this say about the team or this universe? Surprisingly, we know shockingly little about these characters. How did Sue and Reed meet? Why are they in love with each other? How does Ben fit into the group? Why is the team interested in science and space exploration? Who are these villains and why do they fight the Fantastic Four? Are these the most important questions? No, probably not. But we need some groundwork if we're going to care about this world. We don't even need a long scene. There's a theory Zoe's parents are divorced from a single shot of the film during the Golden music video. Given she was originally from America, I can totally see this being the case. See, that's like maybe a minute from the film, and we already know more, or at least want to know more about Zoe than the entirety of the Fantastic Four. There's really nothing. No internal or external conflict, no particularly distinct powers or mechanics of the universe, and basically no backstory for any of the characters. Everything's perfect, which could have been something they played with, but like I mentioned earlier, the film doesn't give the characters a meaningful conflict they have to overcome. So the arcs just feel bland. And no, not everything needs to be answered immediately. Jinu's backstory is given to us in snippets, and we know practically nothing about Rumi's parents. What I'm trying to say is that we need a hook or even a premise if we want to invest in these characters. But as it stands, the intro for First Steps basically just says they're a good team and leaves it at that. There's nothing of interest to explore except for maybe who the earlier villains are, but they're presented as basic boss battles that easily lost, so why should I care? The next comparison is the side villains. Now, I already touched on this a bit in the last section, but I wanted to expand on why Silver Surfer didn't work for me. Okay, so both Jinu and Shalabal gave themselves up to become slaves of the Big Bad. One of our heroes has feelings for them and thus tries to reason with them by learning about their past. The side villain continues being evil until our hero is about to make the final sacrifice. Thus, they sacrifice themselves in the final hour so that our hero may live. It's a pretty basic character arc. However, the reason Jinu's arc works is because it's through him we learn about how the demon world works. We see the inner machinations of Guima and implied friendship with the Saja boys, what the demon world looks like, and how Korean life was like when Jinu was human. This leads to other questions like, how long has Guima existed? What's the extent of his power? Are all demons like Jinu, or is he a rare type? Which also begs the question, are there different classes of demons? That seems to be implied by the Saja boys' power, right? Asking these questions isn't bad in this case because they aren't vital to making the story work. We know enough about Jinu's life and how Guima works for the film to feel satisfying. So when Jinu dies and Guima is defeated, I'm ultimately fine with it because we had enough time to explore their attributes. Meanwhile, Shalabal is a pretty basic character. We don't know anything about her planet other than it was her home. Oh, I guess her husband is Norin Rad, but that's never even remotely addressed in the film, so I'm not counting that. Anyways, I'm not interested in seeing what her planet was like, let alone the countless other worlds destroyed, because the film doesn't offer anything to explore. At best, we get a random beach with alien-looking clothes. At worst, we get generic sound bites of the people. On top of that, there aren't enough interactions between her and Johnny to feel authentic. I mean, I could potentially see a connection there, but the film feels so rushed to get to the end that any possible relationship is undercut by the runtime. So when Shalabal sacrificed herself, I ultimately didn't care because the film didn't have enough breathing room to develop her character. Again, Jinu's sacrifice was the culmination of a character arc. Silver Surfers was a corporate ploy to keep Johnny alive for Doomsday. She's not a character, she's a plot device. What I will give the film is that we got to explore Galactus and his ship. That was cool, and I'd love to see that place a lot more. Really, everything about Galactus was cool in the movie. His aesthetics, his powers, his motivation, everything. Well, almost everything, but we'll get to that soon enough. Lastly, I wanted to discuss both final battles again, but this time from a power scaling perspective. First of all, we see how Rumi's voice was able to bring back Mira and Zoe from the dark side. Then, the trio are able to convert everybody else as they sing what it sounds like. This especially comes in clutch as Jinu essentially essence transfers his soul for the cause, giving Team Huntrix the final power necessary to defeat Guima. This makes sense as in the beginning of the film it's explained that their voices safeguard and convert souls, which gives more power to the Hanmoon and the Hunters. Like I mentioned earlier, I would have liked for Guima himself to fight Team Huntrix more directly, but again, it's still satisfying because this was the height of the Hunters' powers. It's explained, so it makes sense. Plus, he was defeated in a way that leaves him open to return in the sequel. The final act of Fantastic Four might have had one of the most uninspired endings for a battle I've ever seen. Okay, so first of all, if Galactus wanted the baby so badly, why didn't he just eat the Earth? No, seriously, like, wouldn't that be simpler than trying to chase him? Okay, I'm willing to accept that maybe this would prematurely kill Franklin and therefore ruin his plans, but you're a multiversal being. Why are we slowly walking around the city, nearly falling into traps? Which, by the way, was also incredibly predictable. Anyways, what are we doing here? Bro, stop ore farming. It didn't do you any good. And don't get me started on how he lost. Look, I'm willing to accept Sue was able to conjure up all that power because there are stories of mothers doing incredible feats to save their children. But seriously, man? Again, you're a multiversal being and you're losing to a force push?
Oh, no. That ain't right.
Teleport, use super speed, super strength, laser vision, fly, literally just get bigger. Something. But no, this guy is literally just taking the force push the entire sequence. He doesn't even fight back. Like, seriously? This is why Galactus doesn't work as a Fantastic Four villain. I'm sorry, he doesn't. You inevitably have to nerf him because he's going up against a group of relatively weak characters as far as power scaling goes. Look, if you can point me to a comic where defeating him actually makes sense, please show me. I doubt one exists, but I'm willing to give you guys a try on that, alright? And yeah, the film could have used this to their advantage, much like how Lex Luthor used his brains to defeat Superman. But instead, we got a relatively boring fight scene that felt entirely tensionless. See, now I'm triggered. I'm gonna move on before I get an aneurysm. This section is gonna be relatively brief because I think it's pretty obvious, but it's integral to why K-pop Demon Hunters took the world by storm. Look, I don't know anything about music theory, so I'm not gonna discuss that here. What I do know is that I love soundtracks. I mean, most of my playlist is either from a Sonic game or from Star Wars. Recently, I've been listening to the music from Superman a lot. And, of course, K-pop Demon Hunters. Yeah, so I'm not like the biggest fan of musicals. Personally, I don't think the songs are implemented all that well into these stories. Like, 1 minute the characters are having a serious discussion and then all of a sudden they break out into song and dance. Like, I get it, the point is to show heightened emotion, but a lot of these sequences really take me out of the film. Okay, hot take, I think Mamma Mia is way too overglazed. Like, yeah, the music is good, but the story itself is pretty bad. Look, I'm going on a bit of a rant here, but all of this is to say I really like the music from K-pop Demon Hunters. I think the fact music was their main weapon really helps because now every time they sang there was an actually in-universe explanation. Plus, I think the songs themselves are just bangers. The ones I've been listening to the most are Golden, What It Sounds Like, Free, and the absolute GOAT,
I don't think you're ready for the takedown.
One of the themes I didn't discuss earlier was the power of music, both for good and for evil. It brings people together, it's a deep expression of the self, it shows the history of humanity, it can lead social movements. But like anything, it can also be used for evil. It can be used for corporate greed, promote bad ideology, made to humiliate someone. And of course, it can become an obsession. I'm honestly kind of surprised this wasn't important in Sinners. Kind of a weird tangent, but I found it kind of odd how music was this super important plot point at the beginning of the film, only for it to be completely forgotten to handle the vampires. Much like K-pop Demon Hunters, I would have preferred if music was the way they defeated the vampires, showing how powerful good music can be. That's like the one way defeating a villain with song isn't cringe. I'm looking at you, Wish. Never let bro cook again. Anyways, Sinners is by no means a bad movie. I just wish it was more thematically consistent. Like, I felt the film didn't really know what it wanted to say, unlike K-pop Demon Hunters, which had a very clear vision for why music works. Wait a minute, I'm supposed to be comparing this to Fantastic Four. Well, why am I talking about Sinners? Oh, yeah. The soundtrack is basic. Look, the music isn't bad or anything, but outside the Avengers theme and maybe Daredevil, the MCU has never really been known for its music. Again, I don't know music theory, so I couldn't tell you why it was bland, but for me, the First Step soundtrack wasn't very memorable. And for someone who cares a lot about movie soundtracks, that's pretty important to me. It doesn't destroy the film or anything, but to me, it's a symptom of a wider problem with the MCU not putting the care and attention their projects need. But let's move on to the conclusion.
Couch.
Both K-pop Demon Hunters and Fantastic Four First Steps have extremely formulaic stories, yet one uses to their advantage as a means of full artistic expression, while the other feels like a corporate ploy to get fans back on board with the MCU. Again, Fantastic Four is by no means a horrible movie, but the more I look back on it, the more it seems like it was made solely to speedrun us to Doomsday rather than showcasing why the Fantastic Four are great characters. I know I was pretty harsh in this video, but I'd probably give it like a 7.5 out of 10. The visuals and retro-futuristic aesthetics are great, with some cool moments from Galactus, an amazing second act, and good chemistry from the cast. The ending just really spoils the film for me, and ultimately I don't think this movie properly explores any of its characters. On the other hand, I'd give Team Huntrix an 8.5 out of 10. I think being formulaic does hamper the film a bit, especially as I felt the final battle felt a bit anticlimactic. I also would have liked more development from Mira and Zoe, but the themes are great, it's an interesting world, the songs are bangers, and the animation is amazing. I can definitely see why people love this movie, and I do recommend you watch it. Now, I talked quite a bit about shame and acceptance in this video, as those were incredibly important themes in Rumi's arc. Ironically, I also talk a lot about that in a book I just published. It's called Love Isn't Dying, It Was Always Dead. In it, I talk about how society forces these views of romance onto us. If we aren't in a relationship, if we don't have sexual experiences, we aren't good enough. We are incomplete. We are broken. But just like Rumi, I've come to the conclusion that the first step to feeling truly happy is loving yourself. I don't mean indulging in selfish pleasure. It's accepting who we are with all our flaws and finding true purpose in life. If this is a topic that interests you, I highly recommend you check out my book. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Links will be in the description. But what do you guys think? Is K-pop Demon Hunters overglazed? Was I too harsh on Fantastic Four? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.